Good morning, folks, and welcome back to the shop. I'm going to show you something here today that's pretty common amongst these Stihls. This particular model is an FS-90, but this holds true to many Stihl products. I'm working this off a mobile phone, so I'm going to show you what I'm going to be doing and what we're looking to achieve. A lot of people trip it hard to start. First thing they do is jump on and want to change a spark plug or something like that, and that's not always the case. So I'm going to show you a common problem and show you how you can fix that yourself if you're a little bit crafty. So sometimes the reason hard to start, when you pull this rope over like you're going to start it, you can lay it up on your workbench and just gently pull it. At the same time, look at the line head. If that line head spins, that is the sign of the problem. The line head shouldn't spin when you're just pulling it over. It shouldn't spin until you go to give it gas. So you're pulling the whole weight of this shaft, which is one of the reasons it makes it hard to start. So what causes that is inside this housing, there's a clutch, a centrifugal clutch. The bushings in that clutch stick. So the next thing that happens, now you're pulling that whole weight of that shaft because it can't free spin when you try to start it. So I'm going to show you today how you do that and how you fix that problem. And we're going to start by removing this shaft. To do that, you're going to loosen this screw. Once you loosen that screw, the shaft should slide right out of the unit. Sometimes that drive shaft will stick and you just have to reach in and pull it out. Next, we're going to take the nose cone off, but before we do that, I'm going to remove the throttle cable, unhook the coil wires. This isn't really necessary, but it just makes it where you can set all that out of the way, and then you can turn that head how you want it. And what we're going to do is remove, and I've already moved these two to remove the top. We're going to remove this screw, and then this will just lift off. Once you remove all three of those screws, you just lift the top off of it. See, this engages into this, and that's what makes it turn. When you gas it, these dogs kick out. Now if you want to give them a test, just put a small screwdriver in there, and when you pry that, that should come out, and when you let off, it should go back in. As you can see, that one don't. Neither one do. So the next thing that you need to do is remove these two bolts so that you can remove this clutch. I like to leave the bolts sticking down in it just to keep it all together while I pull it apart. So that is your clutch. I'll just lay it here. Let's move the motor to the side. Now when you take this clutch apart, you need to pay attention to the way it is put together. Notice that your spring, your points are sticking down. Notice that your bushings that pop through, which is what we're going to be taking out, are sticking protruded out the bottom. When you pull the top plate off, there's not much there. When you pull the bottom plate off, there are some kind of concave top washers, spring washers. You need to pay attention to how they're set, because you need to put them back the same way. And these are those washers that I'm talking about. Lay them over here. Now these bushings are what's supposed to slip. The bolts hold them secure, and these are supposed to spin on them bushings, and they're not. So we're going to take them out and drive them out. What you do is, I like to leave the spring on one side. That way I know which way it's supposed to go. And just grab each shoe on each side and gently twist it. You'll see it come apart. Pull the spring off of one side or the other, Doesn't matter which side you do first. Now what we want to do is knock that bushing out without breaking it. Normally I'd take it over to the vise, but I got no way to put my camera where my vise is. So I'm gonna go over to the vise and do it, but just so you know, what my goal is to take a punch and knock this out. Once I get it out, I'll come back and show you what we're doing here. Alright, once you knock that bushing out, if you look at it, you can see the rust down inside of it. The goal is to clean all that rust off with a piece of emery cloth or something like that. There's several ways you could do it. I'll show you the basic principle way. And if you have time to wait, it helps to soak these in something first. I don't have that kind of time. The basic way you can do it is take a piece of emery cloth and get a punch that'll fit loosely through your hole in your clutch chute, and just wrap that piece of emery cloth around the end of that punch. Stick that inside of it. You just put that punch through there and you have that ramp on both sides, and work it back and forth, cleaning that rust out of it. And then when you finish that, you're going to do the same thing to this bushing. Now I've found that a pair of needle nose pliers and a wire wheel on a bench grinder works wonders. But you want to work that around and this other part until you get all the rust off of it. What you're looking for as you're cleaning up that rust is you want to be able to stick that bushing in, hold that bushing with your fingers, and you want that clutch shoe to turn completely free. And that's what will solve your problem. You want to do the exact same thing to the other one. While I have them apart, something I like to do is also make sure the face of it is clean. Make sure there's no grease or anything like that. And also do the same thing in your nose cone. If there's grease in there, get you a gas drag or something like that and clean it out, because that's where it engages into that to make it spin when you pop that clutch. And when I put these back together, I like to put a little bit of oil around this bushing to try to help give it some resistance, but make sure you don't get no oil on the face of this clutch. Alright, so you clean both sets of bushings. Now you're going to put it back together. Hold them bushings to keep them from sliding out. And just rehook your spring. And then with a little bit of pressure and a little bit of pulling, you should be able to slide it back where it sits. Now next, you want to put it to where these recesses are facing up. Drop your spring clip washers on it. Now the goal that you want when you're done here, you want to make sure them spring clip washers can clear that bushing, not get pressed in that bushing. The next thing you do is put your cover back on. Now when you do that, I like to start it on one side and get it on, and then on the other side you'll notice it doesn't quite fit. Most of the time you can take your screwdriver or something of that nature and move it around and it'll fit. Now carefully pick it up, turn it over, and lay your other washer back on top. At this point I like to go ahead and stick my bolts through it just to hold everything together. And that way you know everything is together. And when you put it back on the unit, where those shoulders stick through will face toward the unit. Just like that. Drop it down, run everything down. Now before you tighten it down, you need to get it up where you can see it. and make sure that those shoulders are sitting down in and recessed, and that those washers are lined up. If you don't, you're going to tear something up or bust your flywheel. Something's going to come apart, or it's not going to slip like it's supposed to. And I like to snug one side a little bit, turn it over, and then snug the other side. Just like tightening a pipe flange. Now once you snug it, give it a test before you finish tightening it down. Put your screwdriver in there and see if you can move that clutch shoe. Now you hear that sound? Let me get you down here where you can see. Hold your flywheel. See how it moves? That's the way it's supposed to. It wouldn't earlier. Check both sides. And we're good, so we can go ahead now and snug that down. Make sure you tighten it good, because you do not want that coming apart while you're using it. The damage will be astronomical. And that's pretty much it. Now you'll put your nose cone back on. Drop your bolts in it. Tighten them down. Then we're going to reinsert our shaft into the unit and test everything out. Alright, we've got it stuck back together, so now we're going to test it. You remember earlier when we pulled here, the line head turned. So I'm going to pull here while I shine down on the line head, and it should not be turning. And I am pulling, and it is not turning. So this unit now will be much easier to crank, because when you initially pull it, you're not pulling the weight of that shaft. And if you've done this yourself, you've actually saved yourself some money, because if you took this to a shop and they figure out that's the problem, they're not going to clean that clutch. You're going to get a brand new clutch, pay for the clutch and the labor. So this would save you a little bit of money, actually quite a bit of money, by doing it yourself. And it's something with basic tools. You see, the only thing I used here was a T25 star wrench for disassembly, a punch, a hammer, some sandpaper, and time. Appreciate y'all joining me.